So welcome to another episode of Real Agency Talk. I'm here today with Steve and Jamie and the amazing Samantha Pope.
Hi, Samantha. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, amazing.
We had a really good event today, didn't we? Obviously, you spoke, and it was really informative for me as an agent, and I think everyone in the room.
Yeah, massively enjoyed it. Yeah. First question from us. So, I obviously learned about your background today. You studied interior design formally, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that learning element, but I'd made the assumption that it was more flair based, more sort of the creative side. Which, I mean, do you have to have both to be good at what you do, or?
I think you do need to have the natural flair for it, definitely. Right. I did my degree in interior architecture and design because I wanted to understand more about the bones of the building itself. So it was slightly architectural based and interior design. And then my first 4 years I worked in an architectural company because I just wanted to have that knowledge. I wanted to know that I can look at the space planning and understand from a structural point of view that these changes I'm making, is possible. But, you do need to have a natural flair for it. But I think you can then develop those skills by learning, the methods. I think a lot of it you can learn on the job. So I don't necessarily think that you need to have a degree to do it, but there's lots more choice now. I did my degree 20 years ago. So there's a lot more different types of courses available, part-time courses. So yeah, I think you do need the flair, but you can develop on the skills.
So with that in mind, at what stage do you get involved with a project? It's quite early on by the sounds of it.
So not always, but yeah, we always recommend that we come in as early as possible. And if we can come in at the same time as the architects, then that is the best scenario, because we've got a project at the moment that the architect's working up the planning, but obviously they're more concerned about scale and the external parts of the property. So then I'm working with the architect, looking at the spatial planning, making sure I understand my client's brief and their lifestyle and what they need. So then I'm looking at the internal layouts to make sure that they suit the client and everything is fixed to go to planning. And then it's a much more smoother process after that. So yeah, as early as possible.
Sure.
Definitely.
And who's your ideal client then? What type of client are you working with?
Client.
Yeah. Is it a developer? Is it someone with a big budget?
Oh, big budgets.
Yeah.
No, it's a real mix actually, because I do work. I have private clients and developer clients, but they are a different. Your mindset has to shift, because when you're working for a developer, you are more geared towards budget and how can we achieve this look and make it look expensive without the price tag. And lots of tricks in terms of positioning, electrics and lighting, and just lots of ways that you can add value to the property without necessarily spending too much. But then for the private client, it gets more personal, so you really get to know them on a deeper level. I understand my clients' routines, what time they wake up in the morning.
That's important, isn't it?
It really is, because I need to understand their lifestyle, their needs, their pain points, their likes and dislikes when it comes to colours, and there might be some things in their past that is really affecting their decisions now. I've got a client where their master bedroom is really, really important to them, but I understand why, because she's explained
the backstory.
Yeah, the backstory behind it. So but private clients, you can be more personal, and budget is less important because they're willing to spend more on getting the house right, especially if it's their forever home.
And obviously Jamie and I are estate agents, and I think a lot of people out there don't know what they like. We see it when they don't know what house they want to buy, but when they've been living in the house and then instructing someone like yourself, a lot of people you speak to don't know.
I think a lot of people get confused, and this is why I do a very lengthy brief process with a client, and I have and it can take a long time. And so I have pages of questions, because I'm actually trying to read between the lines.
Right.
So they might say, I really want the kitchen like this, but it's because their friends got it, or they've seen it got in this celebrity's house. But actually, if I understand their routine and their lifestyle, I can say, are you sure that that is going to work for you and your family? Because I know their lifestyle, and actually what they think they want is not what would work for them. So I'm there to guide them as well.
It must be a nightmare going to people's houses, though. You must be. Can you ever switch off? You ever go? You must. Oh, I want to put the island that way round, or
We'll put a sink on the island there.
Yeah, and we have these questions a lot, when it comes to islands, because it's do I want the hob on the island, the sink on the island, or nothing on the island? And sometimes we have to go full circle. So I might suggest a certain layout, but then we do have to go full circle with the client actually experiencing, and then we've gone back to that.
Back to your suggestion.
Suggested in the first place, but sometimes we do have to go through that. But it is about understanding really on a deep level their lifestyle, their needs, and guiding them.
From an agent's point of view, if an agent's watching all this and they've got into like the new home sector. So for me as an agent and my team, we spent years trying to get into the new home sector because it was the place to sell houses from a company point of view. Is that what I found is that it's a very personal thing buying a house. The developers don't think creatively or personally. Like I said, they're thinking. So that for me would be a big win as an agent to work with someone like yourself early on with a developer, because all the developers I know very good building houses, but they're not thinking about the person who's buying the house. They're thinking about the bottom line. But obviously, it doesn't have to be an expensive retool. It's about staging or positioning the house.
So if we're brought in early enough, then we're able to work with you. So if we're obviously working for the developer, but we'd work with the agent and really pin down, who do we think the likely buyer is to be? Is it going to be a family or like bachelor pad, or we'll pin down who we think the client profile effectively. If we know what price point they're planning on selling the property for, and then I will look at the layout and actually, does this suit that buyer effectively, and then we can make tweaks to the layout and the lighting and the electrics.
And I think storage is a massive thing, isn't it?
Oh,
we talk about storage and selling new builds. Developers, a lot of developers don't go to expensive put wardrobe. Oh, they can. It's personal choice. It's not. You just don't want to put them in. Saving money, but actually, every buyer going to go around is going to want to see. And I think their visualization of we're going to have to put wardrobes there and there makes the room feel smaller in their head more so than if they were there.
So I think developers often they're focused on let's make sure we've got these number of rooms, but you've got no storage in the hallway. And if it's a large property, even if it isn't, where are you going to put your Hoover and things like that? It really is important from a practical perspective.
So I've found them quite impersonal, the new builds that we're selling currently. There's no real. A buyer walks in and they're quite cold. Although they're brand new. I mean, you can stage and things like that. But again, the layouts don't necessarily work. And I think that's one of the things I picked up from what a change that would be with a developer. Say, while we're talking about the GDVs, let's bring
before you put any
Samantha and have a conversation here.
Any space in the ground, just think about instead of having the airing cupboard, a cylinder, maybe we could put the cylinder upstairs in the loft. And think about that early. It was not going to cost much more, was it? It's not going to may not cost anything more. But then you're going a wardrobe in a bedroom because you've got that cupboard space, or you're going.
So I've wondered about 2D drawings that see an architect's drawings and how that sort of translates into real life. And the challenges of, I suppose, seeing it in 2D and bring it. Is that one of the reasons why things sometimes don't flow, and then when they're in reality they change? How does that work?
I think some people do struggle to visualize a floor plan. I can look at a floor plan and visualize the 3D sort of,
version.
Virtual. But not everyone can do. But even in the office, when we're working looking at floor plans together, reflecting on them, we have this term planitis that we use. It's like, you've got planitis.
Planitis, is that your own little phrase? Is that that's not
it's like when we're coming up with a difficult situation, it's like, how can we tweak this? And it's like, this is just typical planitis here. He needs big outside of the box, and so it's just sometimes you just need to. I think sometimes the best layouts come from when you're faced with the most challenges. You've really got to think outside of the box, and you've got more restrictions. Actually, they often present the best layouts in the end when you've got too many options.
Give us an example of that. So, like, any examples where you were stuck and you had to flip something round or something like that?
Yes, so flip. That's a good. Just no, because I worked in a property a number of years ago in Islington, and the client purchased an apartment with first and second floor. The ground floor was commercial, but you access from the ground up to the first and second. And they were planning on doing an extension out the rear on the first floor. So I actually flipped the layout.
Right.
So you just jogged
Oh, right.
a memory there. So on the first floor, that was all of the bedrooms. And then on the second floor, we had an open plan kitchen, living, dining, which then opened out onto this big terrace.
Lovely.
Because that's where the extension on the first floor was. So all of a sudden, they've got this premium outdoor space, which is just unheard of in that part of Islington. Yeah.
Cool.
In terms of trends and themes and looking forward, and I suppose anyone listening in who's thinking, they're in the process of, I don't know, a layout, and open plan kitchens have been a big thing in the past sort of decade or two, a shift towards and trends in colours, and if you've got your crystal ball out, what are you seeing as the future needs in living space? Bifolds is another example of sort of everyone's got bifolds at the back of the house now from the kitchen space. But what would you see in your crystal ball?
I think it's quite difficult to say, oh, I think this is going to be like the go-to trend, or so to speak, but every client is so different. Every client lives differently. Some clients, the open plan kitchen living space, because they've got a big family and they've got young children, that would really work for them. And then others, they might work from home a lot, and they might actually prefer more of a separate, more divided space, where actually things like partition or sliding doors would help if they haven't got, particular. They might be working from the dining table, for example. So it really does. Our job is to really understand the client brief and work out a layout that suits them, and forget about trends and, oh, this is the new thing. And it really is about tailoring that property to our clients, especially private clients. Obviously, developers is a bit different.
And what about IT? What's the other phrase? Internet of Things. Integrated fridge that orders your leftover or whatever.
Yeah.
How much is IT in your world, and integrating the house to have all your lighting and heating on your app and that stuff? Is it?
It is leaning a lot more towards that. And a lot of our developers are including more in their properties, and or will pre-wire everything.
Right.
So it's there. If so, for example, they'll pre-wire all the ceilings so that the owner, the new owner going in, could put ceiling speakers in.
Yeah.
Or just that they will do a lot of the first fix work.
Yeah.
So that the second fix can then be added by the owner.
Technology does move fast, doesn't it? So a few years ago, we were seeing a lot of the high-end property new builds would have iPads on the wall, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then they stopped working because the iPads were old and they couldn't get the tech to work, and things moved on. So I think there's also a bit of caution there from some homeowners. Like, if they've got too much tech, they're worried about it going wrong.
Yeah, I think the more you have, the more there is room to go wrong. And like, I've got a client at the moment spending an awful lot of money on their house, but they're really not worried about the gadgets.
Really,
They're like, no, I just want standard normal switches, and it's actually quite refreshing, because we can design the lighting to have different circuits so that we can still create those looks, but some of the stuff in the house he can control by his phone. So it's not so much. He's not gone overboard with it, and I think that's you can still create the look without all of that.
So we are estate agents, and obviously most people listening are estate agents. So how do you think estate agents could change their their business by using someone like yourself on a more regular basis?
So I think if you're working with developers, you're often brought in early to look, to advise on
Pricing.
price and sort of the target sale. And you obviously get a first look at those layouts.
Yeah.
And if you suspect that it's going to be a bit difficult to sell this because I don't think that that's going to work. Somebody like me coming in early on, liaising with yourselves, I can then adjust the layout of the property, even down to designing the kitchens and bathrooms and the finishes that are geared towards that target market. And so ultimately makes your job easier because it'll be easier to sell.
Yeah.
And I think from my point of view, that should make the land value even cheaper for that developer, because quite often we get called in, Jamie and I will be, even before they've bought the house, they've bought the land.
Yeah.
They'll say, can you look at these plans I'm looking at offering on this site? What do you think it's worth in value, GDV? And by getting someone like you in, it can actually increase that GDV by 10% perhaps.
Yeah.
For the work from the outset, for just jigging some things around.
Yeah.
Because often the value set, and then the developer calls you back a year, 6 months later or so, and says
They're built.
they're built, they're ready to be, they're starting to be built, and we're putting the prices up 50 on each unit, but there's not really any reason why, and they've missed the opportunity to have. I think that for me, it's
creating the value rather than just putting the price up because the build costs have gone up.
Yeah.
But if you're in at a much earlier stage, and somebody like myself is also in an early stage, Adam, we worked on a property together where you was able to use my floor plans, so it had all of the furniture layouts, and so
there's only benefits there as well.
Yeah, it does help. So people actually looking at a floor plan can kind of get an understanding of how the furniture arrangement will be, and
that client was a perfect example of where I don't think they were really listening to me. And I, before even Sam went round to see the client, I prepped her a couple of things I thought were wrong, but they listened to her straight away.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh, he's just an agent."
we can do a good cop, bad cop.
yeah.
You know?
But I think it helps coming from someone else, doesn't it, as a third party, rather than, and when you're involved in a big development, like someone's going to be using your services, they normally spend a lot of money on a build, aren't they? It's stressful for them as well, isn't it? So they've got lots of decisions. They're just choosing this, that, the colour of the cladding outside.
Yeah.
I think they're so focused on cost. They know what they're spending, but ultimately, if you look at how much our fees are, and then the added value that we can bring to that property, it's well worth it.
It almost sounds like interior designer doesn't do what you do justice, if I can say that. It's not like you turn up with a color chart and a mood board. It's you actually, it almost, because the value add is during the architect's work phase.
Yeah.
I don't know. It almost.
I know what you mean.
It's probably my misassumptions on what you do.
I think a lot of people do think that we just
put wallpaper or something.
Paint the walls and put a bit of wallpaper. We just said plum cushions, but that really isn't the case.
That's what happens.
So
is that a thing now? They still say that?
Yeah, some have gone.
Yeah, so I've heard
that
that
now. But I'm an interior architect, so I think from a structural point of view first. Right. So by getting me in, I don't want to badmouth architects, but some of them do this well, some of them don't. But some architects really are just focused on the scale, form, and the external, and the internals are sort of an afterthought. So because I think from the inside out, I will work that layout. And if it's a developer, we have to put our developer head on and our private client head on. So it depends on that client. But we gear the internals to suit the client effectively, or the target market. I can't remember what your question was now, because I was leading on to something.
No, not just an interior designer.
Oh yes. Yeah. So I think I'm an interior architect. And first of all, we look at the interior architecture. So that's what I mostly do with developers. And that is designing the kitchens, the bathrooms, the layouts, the electrics, the lighting. We choose all the hard finishes, the doors, the architraves, the ironmongery, everything that's fixed to the building. And then the interior design side is everything that you put into those rooms that are loose, effectively, apart from window dressing, that they're semi-fixed. But if you was to pick up that property, turn it upside down and shake it, everything that falls out would be under the interior design scope.
Yeah.
So mainly for our developers, we're doing the interior architecture because they don't always furnish their properties.
Yeah.
But for our private clients, we'll do the full interior architecture, interior design for in turnkey service. So
Yeah.
literally they buy it, we come in, they move in when it's all done.
Yeah.
Massively, yeah. And to be fair to our architects and very listening, because they're kind of understanding of fire regulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot behind them.
They deal with all the formalities and the permissions and the dates.
Oh, just and all the planning implications of it.
Yeah.
So for them to think about where you can put that bray on and apply it, that makes so much sense to be part of that process.
And that's why it does make sense to bring us in as early as possible, because then we dovetail with the architects and work together.
Yeah.
They deal with all of the stuff I don't want to deal with, you know, all of the legal stuff,
Yeah.
you know,
Private
construction,
gateway and-
yeah, all of that, getting it passed, making sure it's signed off, all the permissions, and you know, we deal with the pretty stuff,
Yeah.
the best stuff.
So I've got one final question. So
Yeah.
what's your, you always seem busy and excitable, and you're an entrepreneur, and I think we talk a lot about all that sort of stuff, business and, marketing and stuff, but what's your favourite part of the job?
Favourite part of my job? Oh my God, that's a really hard question.
That's a good question.
That is, yeah, that is a good question. Do you know? Oh gosh, just one.
I think, favourite, you must have one favourite part of the job.
Okay.
When a lot of agents' favourite part of the job is the completion day.
Yeah, of
being at
course.
the client. Is that
Well,
the
for
favourite
me,
part or the
okay,
favourite part of the
so
beginning?
I've got a few favourites, but if I had to pick one, it is when we hand over the property to the client, because I've had clients cry happy tears, just because they've gone from the before and then the after, and they're able to just move in, and it's so emotional, like what they've invested in, and they seeing how beautiful it is. It's so rewarding for us to see how happy our clients are. So that would have to be top of the list, but it's a close, I don't know, there's so many good bits throughout the process.
You become friends with a lot of your clients as well, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, because we know them so well.
Well, I've got a little story to tell at the end. So just how me and Sam first met. Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah.
So Sam bought a property off myself. I was selling in Bishop Stortford, and the client, at the time I was dealing with on another home, ended up buying the home she was selling. But I had not actually met her. So she was two different chains was involved, and I was standing one night with my children at Tesco's paying for this, and I hear this hello, and it was Sam saying, "You don't know me, but we're involved in a couple of chains." But she'd seen me on a couple of videos, and that's how we first met. So I met over at Tesco. She was like, "Can you push it through? We're winning in exchange." And I was like,
I was actually really embarrassed, because I think we saw this property. I really loved it. I could see it's not a pretty property.
No,
it has
was
a
one of those
lot.
ones with
It needs a lot of
potential.
work. Yeah. So only a certain type of person was going to buy it. But I think you'd called me, and I think I was in the middle of something, or the
Oh
conversation.
yeah, you cut me short, didn't you? I
Okay.
thought.
And then I felt like, oh no, I'm so
I
rude.
remember that. I do. Yeah, I
And
forgot that.
then I said, this is manifestation, or the universe doing its thing, because I then went to my husband. I was like, I feel so rude. I don't want him to think I'm horrible. And then I was like, I really need to bump into him. And then literally that same day, I followed him. No,
Where's he? Tesco.
that same day, I then bumped into you in Tesco's,
Yeah.
both with our
And
children.
you apologised for being short.
I was
on the
like, I'm
phone,
so
yeah.
sorry.
I think we spoke earlier that day or the day before, didn't we? That's-
Yeah, and I was like, I needed him to know I wasn't being rude.
I was like, and you bought a house, didn't you?
And then we bought the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're still in it. Yeah, still got.
Fighting with the planets.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Another story. We can have a conversation about the planet.
Yeah, and actually, we talk about a lot of manifestation stuff. Actually,
Yeah.
since knowing Sam, we always end up going back to that, don't we? And like in the mindset, which where You
Yeah.
come in, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
Thank
Stefan,
you
for
very much.
me. I
Brilliant.
enjoyed it. Thank you.